Hello, everyone, and welcome to Literary Tales. I'm your host, Paul Krause, and in this episode, we begin an examination of Leo Tolstoy's great work, War and Peace, by examining the character and dialectical contrast between two of the great heroes, Prince Andrei Bolkonsky and Pierre Bezukhov. To start an examination of Tolstoy's epic masterpiece, it is important to examine the characters who populate it. And the two greatest heroes of the story are Count Pierre Bezukhov and Prince Andrei Bolkonsky. Tolstoy casts the struggle and struggles of each character as essentially the same. All the characters featured are fighting their own internal as well as external war to find peace, joy, love, and meaning in life. Thus, each character is trying to live, to find that meaningful life we all seek. As Pierre says, towards the end of the novel, having finally come to this revelatory moment, he captures the essence of what the entire work is moving to achieve. Life is God, Pierre says. Everything changes and moves, and that movement is God. And while there is life, there is joy in consciousness of the divine. To love life is to love God. Harder and more blessed than all else is to love this life in one's sufferings. Pierre Bezukhov is first introduced as the spirited but illegitimate child of Count Bezukhov. He floats around the circles of Russian high society, having been invited to attend Anna Pavlovna's party at the beginning of the book, yet he is always kept at an arm's distance from the very society he moves in. He is not only struggling to find meaning in life, he is struggling to find acceptance in Russian high society. As an illegitimate child, Pierre occupies a sort of territorial and social limbo. He participates in high society events because of his connections and friendships, but he is an outsider, both in lineage and, as we know, political ideas. The high society of Russia is vehemently opposed to the French Revolution and to Napoleon Bonaparte, whom they refuse to call emperor. He is, until the Franco-Russian alliance following the Russian defeat at Friedland in 1807 and the subsequent Treaty of Tilsit, referred to constantly by the Russians as a madman, a usurper, a monster, and an antichrist. As Anna Pavlovna says in her early party, Russia alone must save Europe. Pierre, by contrast, is a supporter of the Jacobin ideas of universal rights, liberation, and republican governance. It matters not the reign of terror and the bloodshed spilled. The very ideas of universal humanity, prosperity, and progress are intoxicating, and according to Pierre, Napoleon is the one who put to an end the bloodthirsty excess of the terror and brought to a greater, more concrete and humane reality those human values of liberty, fraternity, and equality. And in this struggle that Pierre is situated in, we find the constant theme of the book, which infects every major character: the struggle with falling in love with ideas instead of embodying concrete, incarnate, personal lives in the world. When Pierre is legitimized as the heir to the Bezukhov fortune, he finds a sort of new acceptance by high society. The Kuragin family, led by Elena, pursues after him, primarily for his wealth. The Kuragin family is depicted as obsessed and embodying the values of objects and objectification, a purely materialistic outlook on life. Elena is case in point. but the contrast of Elena and Natasha will come in another episode. Here, however, Elena is important in understanding Pierre. Pierre, when he is courted by Elena, even acknowledges that he's not sure he truly loves her, but the two marry anyway. It is not a good marriage. It is marred by distrust, alienation, scorn, hatred, and ultimately infidelity. Pierre, from start to finish, at least understands that life is about service, the love of others. In his famous reunion with Andrei, after a 2-year hiatus following the Battle of Austerlitz, he says as much, imploring his friend to live more than just a life for oneself. However, the stumbling and generally incompetent Pierre can never actualize this in his own life, at least thus far. He is, at first, in love with the ideas of serving others through primarily political ends. This is alienating because one is always kept at a distance in the political process. Politics is depersonalizing. Pierre is in love with the idea of serving or helping others, but not actually engaged in the nitty-gritty reality of real service to others, the concrete, the physical, and intimate helping of persons in need, rather than through the proclamations of impersonal mechanisms and bureaucratic constructs, which is the realm of the political. In Pierre, we find the tension between those ideas and concrete living and loving. Pierre is enamored with the idea of helping others by not actually getting their hands dirty. Through the creation of laws and courts and bureaucracies, Pierre thinks we can help others. Yet over the course of the work, Tolstoy reveals to us that this reality, or this perceived reality, is a sham. The only way to actually love and serve others is to actually have social relationships, friendships, and love with others. Trying to find meaning in his life, following the duel with Dulukhov, Pierre turns to Freemasonry to help guide his life. It is suffice to say here that the importance of Freemasonry is, paradoxically, that it points Pierre in the right direction of Christian love and service to others, love of fellow man in a very intimate and incarnate way, which is the charitable manifestation of Christian love, agape. But it is also intoxicated by the same abstract and esoteric ideas that carried Pierre in his beliefs with Jacobinism. The esoteric secrets of Freemasonry serve as a buttress to Pierre actualizing the very agape, the charitable love that Freemasonry preaches. He has taken one step forward, but 2 steps backward, so to speak. Freemasonry breaks him from the edifices of the impersonal for a more declarative, concrete engagement with others. Yet it also places new barriers over him, best seen when he is pondering the signs of squares and mathematical and esoteric meanings in life. The most important contributions Freemasonry nevertheless passes to Pierre is that no one can attain truth by himself, and that belief in God is necessary for true joy and joyful services of others to be realized in life. Insofar that no one can attain truth by himself, Pierre is forced into relations with others. So Pierre is leaving behind the realm of ideas and moving into the realm of the concrete and the personal. This is a good and pilgrimatic movement for Pierre. He also becomes a sort of missionary to others, namely Andrei. Pierre's movement to love and service of others is completed after the Battle of Borodino and his reunion with Natasha, whom he is in love with and eventually marries. It is this relationship of love with another person that Pierre has been struggling to actualize in life. The happiness found in love, sanctified through marriage, is the key to human meaning and happiness in the world. This is a standard Christian outlook, and War and Peace is the quintessentially Christian story. It is also the universal story, because the story of struggle for love and life is the very human story, the struggle of every human soul. Sacrifice and love of others is what brings joy and meaning to our lives. Pierre finally experiences this joy in his marriage to Natasha at the end of the work, having left behind the world of abstract and esoteric ideas to find that a meaningful life is right before his eyes in the beautiful love of another woman, Natasha. Prince Andrei Bolkonsky is the foil and perfect contrast to Pierre. When Andrei is introduced, he seemingly has everything. He is handsome, he is married, his wife is pregnant. He comes from a good family. He is the legitimate heir of an aristocratic household. He is also the aide-de-camp to General Mikhail Kutuzov, the greatest of the Russian generals and heroes in War and Peace. Yet Andrei is hollow on the inside. Andrei is seeking glory to find meaning in life. As such, he begins the story as an Achilles literary archetype. He seeks glory in battle to find the immortality and the glory that he craves. Yet Andrei is not himself. He is depersonalized in this pursuit of glory. Like Pierre, Napoleon is Andrei's hero, but for different reasons. Napoleon is Andrei's hero because Napoleon is the embodiment of the immortal glory that Andrei is seeking. Pierre finds Napoleon's conquest of Europe through the distorted lens of bringing liberation to others. Andrei looks at Napoleon as the man he needs to become to find meaning, purpose, and happiness in life. Up to the Battle of Austerlitz, Andrei repeatedly says that he is seeking his Toulon moment, that episode that will catapult him into immortal glory as it did Napoleon. Andrei abandons his own identity in pursuit of becoming a cookie-cutter replication of the Emperor of France. His idolization of Napoleon is shattered during the Battle of Austerlitz when he looks up at the heavens, wounded, and concludes, "All was vanity," and he opens himself up to the majestic beauty of the infinite cosmos. Andrei's Austerlitz moment, in contrast to his Toulon moment, is the beginning of a long and arduous transformation. Andrei was really serving himself. His pursuit of glory was for himself and himself only. Though when he meets Pierre in 1807 at Bald Hills, he asserts otherwise. Andrei is confused, but Andrei always accomplishes what he sets his mind to, right or wrong, foolish or wise. Here is another contrast with Pierre. Pierre has great plans conjured up in his mind, but he can never execute them into reality. Andrei makes his plans and devotes himself to them and realizes them, whether they turn out exactly as he intended. Believing his vain pursuit of glory was for others, though not realizing it was for himself, he sinks into isolation at Bald Hills as he becomes a sort of ascetic monk, isolated and locked away from the world. But in his talk with Pierre, he becomes more and more animated and spirited. He is experiencing a sort of resurrection to new life. His meeting with Pierre formed an epoch in Prince Andrei's life, Tolstoy writes. Though outwardly he continued to live in the same way, inwardly he began a new life. In this transformative conversation and conversion with Pierre, Andrei comes to agree with Pierre that love is the meaning of life. Love of others, love of the world, relationships, not love of self, is what brings joyful meaning into life and is what gives us the power to continue in life. Andrei subsequently struggles to achieve precisely this, that love of others in the world can bring a meaningful life to every soul. Where Pierre moves to embody love through service to others in marriage, Andrei becomes an image of Christ through the struggle to forgive. In the heartwarming turned heart-wrenching relationship of he and Natasha, Anatole Karagan intruded and seduced the young Natasha, which ruined their marriage plans. Andrei, in the events leading up to the Battle of Borodino, is seeking out Anatole to confront him, either to duel or to kill him outright. Andrei and Anatole have their meeting in a hospital in the aftermath of the bloodshed of the Battle of Borodino. Anatole has lost a leg and is whimpering and crying in pain. Andrei, who has also been wounded and placed next to him, recognizes him and could easily punish Anatole for his crimes, as he was trying to do all along. Instead, he comes to forgive his mortal enemy. As he thinks to himself, Andrei says, "Compassion, love of our brothers, for those who love us and for those who hate us. Love of our enemies. Yes, that love which God preached on earth and which Princess Maria taught me, and I did not understand. But now Andrei has come to understand that compassion and love of others through merciful forgiveness can also bring meaning, purpose, and joy in life." Beside Anatole, and as well as the other Russian wounded in the Battle of Borodino, Andrei weeps for all the errors he, Anatole, and all men make in life. But the movement from hollow and vain Achilles to an image of the forgiving Christ is not yet complete until Andrei comes face to face with Natasha. Natasha and other aristocrats, escaping Napoleon's invading forces, pick up the wounded of Borodino, and she finds Andrei among them. She begs him for forgiveness, to which Andrei replies he already has. Although Andrei dies, he does experience the loving joy that comes in love of others through forgiveness as he dies in Natasha's arms. In this respect, Andrei becomes an image bearer of Christ's love, mercy, and forgiveness to others. In Pierre and Andrei, Tolstoy reveals to us two ways that meaningful, joyful life can be actualized in the world. One is through the love of others consummated in marriage, the marriage between Pierre and Natasha, which brings new life, a family, into the world. In Prince Andrei, we find love through the form of forgiveness of others, which brings healing into the world. The wounded soul of Prince Andrei, the soul that sought glory, bloodshed, and war, is brought to a moment of peace right before his death in the arms of the woman whom he loved, and he forgives. And in that forgiveness, all is right in the world, and Andrei dies in peace. Through love in the form of marriage, and through love in the form of forgiveness, Tolstoy is telling us that meaningful life can be found if only we have the eyes to see and the ears to hear